Hello and welcome to Market Open Direct Connect, where companies and investors get right to the point of the news that matters, what it means, and how it impacts your investment. I'm your host, Stuart Walters, and we're joined here today by Bruce Maluish, the Managing Director at VRX Silica, ASX code VRX. VRX Silica is focused on the supply of the global demand for silica sand and is the most advanced silica sand play on the ASX. Bruce is participating in a straight Q&A today, and I'd like to thank those who have submitted questions already. If you do have any questions for Bruce, you can submit them via the Q&A tab, which can be found at the bottom of your screen. It's now time to introduce our guest. Bruce, welcome to Direct Connect.
Thanks, Stuart. Always good to have a chat.
So I noticed you put out an announcement yesterday on your Arrowsmith North Silica Sand project. How are you progressing with the environmental approvals process?
We're moving forward. The document we lodged is called a response to submissions. And these are submissions that were submitted during the public environmental review period. And that was in July, August last year. We actually lodged the main document for this project is called the environmental review document in February last year. In June, we were notified that it was going to be published. It was published and there were public submissions. There were only 8 public submissions. 2 were from NGOs. The other 4 were from government agencies. And we responded to those submissions with a document in the end of October last year. That was reviewed by the EPA, but the EPA also circulated amongst all the other government agencies that might play a part in this approvals process. And in this case, it included the Federal Department, DQ. And we got comments back on that in March of this year. And since then, we've been compiling this response, a review of this response, but also addressing the comments that were made during the submission period. So it's an important document at this point here. So, and it's a culmination of a review of data that we've lodged already, address the comments that have come through from the EPA, and this latest draft has gone into them now. If accepted, the next step for this is for it to be published, and that is the most important point of this whole program. And it's generally about a 5-step process to get EPA approval. This is the last step. So we may get comments back, we may have to make some amendments, but we think we've addressed the comments, and it's an adjunct to the environmental review document that we've already lodged. There was some 1,400 pages with all the appendices. So it's a very extensive submission that gives all the information to the EPA and the government agencies, including the feds, adequate information for them to complete the assessment. If the response to submissions gets published, that's an acknowledgement by the EPA that they don't require any more information. So that's the next step we're working up to. It could take a month, it could take 2 months. Technically, it's supposed to take 30 days. We'll have to see, but we'll follow that up with a meeting with the EPA in the next couple of weeks. So it's an important document, it's an important step, and hopefully we can move on with the approvals process.
Once the approvals are in place, what are the next steps at Arrowsmith North?
Well, it's to get it up and running. In parallel with the EPA process, there's another 2 permits that are required. One's a works approval, which is the plant operations, and the other one's a mining approval, and that's subject to a mining proposal, which is already lodged with the Mines Department, DMIRS. They run in parallel. So those approvals ultimately will be assessed and will be subject to EPA approval. So they run in parallel. So we've got to get all those approvals in place, and then financing. We've been talking to a number of financiers, including government agencies. unfortunately, we don't qualify for the North Australia Infrastructure Fund, NAIF. We're not far enough north to qualify, unfortunately. We've got to sort of be north of about Carnarvon. But Australian Export Finance, they're near the top of our list. They're very competitive rates, and they look good. We've already had preliminary discussions with them and a review a while back, and we'll re-engage with them. But we have a number of other financiers that are interested in financing this particular project. So finance, we've completed all of our exploration, metallurgical test work, process circuit design, engineering is all completed. So if we pull the trigger on this, we can start construction straight away. So really it's a matter of financing. Once we have the EPA approval in, we'll be able to finalise a couple of offtake agreements. We've got 3 in place at the moment for about 300,000 tonne a year. But we have a number of others as well who are sitting in the wings, but they want to see EPA approval. Quite frankly, at the moment, internationally, the narrative has changed when international companies are looking to invest into Australia, and they're all very concerned about the approvals process. So we're not on our lonesome when it comes to this, to the stretched out approvals process. Quite a number of other companies are in the same position, and that's recognised internationally. So it doesn't do you Australia a lot of good, actually, with all these delays. But put finance in place and then finalise contracts for construction, haulage, port operations. We've been in discussion with all those potential contractors. We'll finalise those. They're sitting there all but, and pull the trigger on it. And a final investment decision.
Another good one that's come in. You have other silica sand projects in WA, most notably at Muchea. How's that progressing?
Yes, it's moving along. We're in the process at the moment of compiling an application to the Minister for Mines to amend our mining lease. We've done quite a bit of work there, environmental work, and in fact, all the environmental surveys that we've done at Arrowsmith North, we have repeated at Muchea. Now, the vegetation there is a little bit different, so some of the studies are slightly different, but in general, we understand at the EPA now what are their priorities. So we've done studies there to make sure we're addressing those priorities. Strangely enough, so far, we haven't recorded any priority species in at Muchea, which is really unusual. But we've been able to select an area that we think is the lowest environmental impact. And in fact, we'll be dropping off areas of our mining lease that are in fact better conservation value than what we would want to be taking up in our mining lease. But we're also getting our biggest bang for our buck with high quality sand. So it's all but at the moment. We'll make this submission to the Minister. Hopefully that'll be addressed. And at the same time, we're looking to get the project recognised as being a significant critical minerals project for Australia.
Why is Muchea silica sand so special?
It's high grade. The Muchea deposit is probably one of a handful of deposits of its kind in the world. Australia has North Queensland, around Cape Flattery. There's a very large deposit there, over 1 billion tonnes, and good high-grade sand. Muchea is slightly higher grade and a similar, very large deposit. These deposits are getting more and more difficult to access all around the world. So we've got an incredible amount of interest for companies to buy Muchea sand. But because of its grade, we've been looking at alternative downstream processing opportunities. So it's very high grade. It's a large deposit. However, it is close to Perth. So we have to make sure that all those issues that the EPA have raised at Arrowsmith North, we can address at Muchea to make the whole process a bit more seamless.
Bruce, this is the last question that's come in so far. There's been a number of announcements from both the federal and state government around the critical minerals space, including the manufacture of solar panels in Australia. How does VRX and Silica sand projects fit into this space?
Right in the middle. We've been in contact with all the agencies that are involved in the potential for solar panel manufacturing here in Australia. And in fact, we have a MOU in place with the University of New South Wales and their Photovoltaic Innovation Centre. We actually think that Muchea is probably the only location in Australia that has the potential to make ultra clear glass, which is the piece of glass that goes over the top of the solar panel. So we've been communicating that with all the departments. We've had a session with Chris Bowen, with Ed Husick, and they're right at the federal level looking to push Australia's potential for solar panels. At the moment, nobody else is looking to manufacture solar panels, the piece of glass that goes over solar panels. In our case, we've got the grade of sand that can make that type of glass, but also the very important attributes are LNG. In our case, we've got 2 gas pipelines run right through the middle of Muchea. We've got access to very high-grade lime, which is also required to make glass, and dolomite. And because of LNG and salt production in WA, there's potential to make soda ash. They're all ingredients that are required to make glass. And the critical one is energy. In this case, LNG, potentially Midwest has got potential for hydrogen. And in fact, we have a geothermal permit that we were granted last year. We've farmed that out to a specialist group. That's got the potential to produce geothermal energy and hydrogen, and we get access to that hydrogen. We also have in place an MOU with Exodus. They're a company looking to put hydrogen here in the Midwest as well. So if potentially we can get a hold of hydrogen and make glass out of that, that's the closest you've got to get to the greenest glass you can possibly get. But because of those attributes, it's probably the only location in Australia where we can possibly make that glass. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the other manufacturers will be happening in the East Coast, but transporting PV cells from the East Coast to Western Australia, it's more doable than trying to transport glass to the East Coast. So there is the potential to actually manufacture solar panels here in WA. Now, this is going to take a lot of work, and we've been working with all the government agencies. We've just had recent Zoom meetings with the new government agencies that have been set up to administer this future production of solar panels. So yes, we're right in the middle of that, but we're also looking at other downstream opportunities that fit into that renewable space. So we finished a program recently using Muchea sand to grind that into a flour. Yes, the flour is required for LCDs, but you also require high-grade flour to make high-tensile yarn fiberglass. Now, that's the cover that goes on turbine blades. There's potential, and there's groups here in WA looking to manufacture turbine blades. So we fit into that. And a little-known application for silica and silicon is thermal protection in industrial batteries. You have a thermal blade, which is a silicon-based sponge, and it sits between the battery cells in big industrial batteries. And it's mainly if they do catch fire, and they do catch fire, this delays the fire catching onto the next cell. We're working with a group that's in Singapore who are producing a better quality thermal blade. The world standard is a 20-minute delay between one battery catching fire, then the one cell catching fire, then the next one. These guys can produce a blade that takes an hour. So we're working with them. They need high quality silica flour. So there's a number of potential downstream products that fit straight into the renewable industry, not well known, but we've done a lot of work on that, and we've been doing that work while we're waiting for the EPA process. So we're not sitting around just waiting for the EPA. We are trying to move on with Muchea and other opportunities.
Bruce, thank you. That's everything for today. It's certainly very informative. Thank you for being available and answering some great questions. For more information about VRX Silica, head to the company website, vrxsilica.com.au, or you can follow the company's social media channels. Thank you for those who attended. I'm sure you got plenty out of it, as did I. Bruce, wish you all the very best and look forward to chatting again soon.
Thanks, Stuart.